Welcome to another edition of Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show. I'm Anthony T. In this edition, I will be talking about AEW's Revolution pay-per-view. I'll give you my thoughts on that pay-per-view. Then I will be having an interview with writer-director Andrew Durand, as we'll talk about his latest film, The Local Boogeyman, which is currently fundraising on Indiegogo. Then, on What's Anthony T Watching, I will be talking about Scream 5. I'm not going to get into this debate about this film being called Scream. It's Scream 5, period. It's not Scream, it's Scream 5. I don't want to hear Scream 2022. It is Scream 5, everyone. But I will talk more about it at the end of this podcast, because I do have some thoughts on this film. But first, the news. Now, one of the things that's been flying under the radar is AMC's upcoming adaptation of Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire. Now, if you remember, the book was adapted to a film in 1994. You know, the one starring Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Christian Slater, especially as the interviewer, as we're focusing on that part here. We did not need a miniseries from AMC. The 1994 film is perfect. In fact, I would probably put it up there as one of the greatest vampire films ever made. In fact, I didn't even think we needed an 8-part miniseries from AMC. They should have left this thing alone. But, and I say a big but here because, seriously, it's a big but. They've cast the interviewer for the upcoming Interview for the Vampire miniseries, and it's none other than Eric Bogosian. Yeah, I know, these people are not happy right now. I can tell because when you go to Eric Bogosian's IMDb page, you will find out he is 68 years old. That means they've gone way off the source material. And I know some of you people who love the book will not be happy about this. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. I probably would not be happy about this neither. But I love Eric Bogosian. I'm sorry. I like the actor a lot. Whether it's in Oliver Stone's talk radio, or his one-man show, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, or playing a villain in Under Siege 2, you know, the Under Siege sequel starring 90s action star Steven Seagal. I love this. Seriously, this is interesting to me. I know you're not going to be happy about it, and I get it. You want somebody young. But still, this is going in a very different direction from the source material. I know, you Anne Rice fans are now not happy with me because I'm loving this casting. Seriously, I like character actors. Eric Bogosian is a character actor, a very good one. Whether it was talk radio or Law and Order Criminal Intent, he's a very good character actor. And one of the things that I love are character actors. If you can get a good character actor in one of the leads in a horror film or TV series, I'm willing to be interested in it. Because to tell you the truth, I was not interested in this Interview with a Vampire miniseries when first news came out. But now I'm interested. And to add the fact that it has a great character actor in one of the leads, it's going to be a very interesting series, everyone. Seriously. I know you Anne Rice fans are angry with me right now. You guys want everything to the source material, but it's not going to happen, unfortunately. Not with this Interview with a Vampire. So it's going to be an interesting series. That I can guarantee now. It'll be interesting to see what other things they deviate from the source material, as I'm one of those people that likes to see things kept the same, but this is an interesting take, seriously. And I would not be surprised if this thing is divisive amongst Anne Rice fans, as I think this news is. But if you put a very good character actor like Eric Bogosian in one of those lead roles, chances are I will be checking this one out. Moving on. Now, this is news I don't want to talk about, but I really have to talk about because there is 2 films that I came across of between episodes where I had this WTF moment. Seriously. To the point where I'm going to have to waste time in the news and talk about it because this is so ludicrous. Seriously. Films that pretty much in which the idea must have come from a 5-year-old. Because no real screenwriter would even come up with these ideas. Seriously. Case in point, first film, Titanic 666. Now, this is a film that's going to air on Tubi. The production company comes to no shock, as it's from those great people over at the Asylum. Yeah, you know, the Asylum. That company that does not know what a good screenplay is. A company that feels like every screenplay comes from a 5-year-old. Or the treatments, at least. Seriously. Because this is such a ludicrous idea. Titanic 666. I will read you the film's official logline. 110 years after its namesake's fateful journey, the Titanic 3's maiden voyage will land at the original site of the wreck. Although a faithful replica of the original, this mammoth cruise ship is built with the most advanced technology, ensuring that it has no chance of sinking. Stop right there. When you have it in your log line, no chance of sinking, it's probably going to sink. But I'll continue reading on. But when the Titanic 3 arrives at the tragic site, strange events begin to occur as dark forces from the deep rise to the surface, terrorizing all aboard and threatening to repeat one of history's greatest disasters. All from the Asylum. It's like, really? It's like, that's the only thing the Asylum can do is make these stupid movies where they make no sense and they look like they had a 5-year-old write the screenplay and try to get some somewhat noticeable names in their films. I just don't get it. Seriously. That sounds so ridiculous. To someone who watches serious films, that's just so ridiculous. I mean, I see a lot of bad films too. A lot of B-movies. But this is just beyond my comprehension. Seriously. If that isn't worse, there's also another movie coming out soon called Amityville in Space. Yes, that's right. The Amityville house is in space. It's bad enough we had Jason go to space, Pinhead go to space, Leprechaun go to space. Now we need the Amityville house to go into space. Seriously. Oh, where are these filmmakers coming up with these stupid ideas? Seriously, they're so mind-boggling. It's like, it feels like the screenwriting is so dumb that they come up with the stupidest stories. I don't like to use the term 5-year-olds, but that's what it feels like to me. I'm sorry. Now, this film is slated to be released by Wild Eye Releasing, and here's the plot synopsis for this film. The ultimate battle against the Amityville curse begins after the infamous murder house is exorcised from Earth and reappears in outer space in Amityville in space. Are you kidding me? You're gonna make a house disappear from Earth and send it into space. I just don't get it with some of these films these days. Who's writing some of this stuff? Seriously. This is stuff I don't want to see. I don't mind a good, silly B-movie. But this is stuff where I will not see. Seriously. I cannot for the life of me see it because it looks so utterly stupid. I don't get it, really, how these films flood the market. I really don't. And I see good independent films don't get releases. I just don't get it. Seriously. But Amityville in Space will be out in July 2022. And no release date for Titanic 666. Enough with this. Let's just move to wrestling news. Moving on to wrestling news. Cody Rhodes is set to return to WWE. PW Insider recently broke the news that Cody Rhodes is set for a WWE return. No details on the contract, but it's probably a good amount of money. Just, let's face it. It has to be a good amount of money. And good for him, as I don't fault anybody for taking the money. Even though I'm big on All Elite Wrestling, I still don't fault the guy for leaving All Elite Wrestling. Sure, I would want him to stay, but if he's got money being thrown at him that's more than what All Elite Wrestling is willing to pay, I can't blame the guy for taking the money. Now the big question is, will he show up at WrestleMania this year? WrestleMania is happening April 2nd and 3rd. It's about over a week away, maybe a week and a half away. By the time this episode drops, it's probably a week and a half away. So, there's not enough time to put Cody Rhodes into a WrestleMania match. Or is there? As Seth Rollins currently has no opponent for WrestleMania and still does not have an opponent at this time of recording. Maybe they do something where Seth Rollins doesn't get an opponent at WrestleMania, and then at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins comes out, challenges anybody, and then that's when we get Cody Rhodes debuting back with the company, as he's going to be with the Raw brand when he comes back. So it will be interesting to see how WWE handles Cody Rhodes. Do they debut him at WrestleMania? Do they debut him the Raw before WrestleMania? Do they debut him the night after WrestleMania? If I was WWE and you have Seth Rollins without a match at this point and you already have Cody Rhodes signed, you might as well put on Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. I know it's late, but at this point, Seth Rollins needs a match. If Seth Rollins is not on one of the nights with a full match, not one of those stupid segments, a match, a proper match, then it's going to be a crime. And I really think Cody Rhodes should debut this upcoming Monday to set up that match. Just have him come out after Seth Rollins holds the program hostage or something and set up the match that way. Because at this point, Seth Rollins needs a match at WrestleMania, quite frankly. And we're just about a week away from it. So I think that's what's going to happen. But I really hope it's just not a segment, or he just comes in at the end of WrestleMania. That would be kind of cheap if he just debuts at the end of WrestleMania. Because seriously, you had the guy there, have him wrestle his first WWE match back at WrestleMania. He's big, he's popular right now. Cash in on the opportunity. But then again, this is WWE, so I don't know what's going to happen. Switching over from WWE to Cody Rhodes' former company, AEW, on the March 16th edition of Dynamite, Thunder Rosa became the new AEW Women's Champion by defeating Dr. Britt Baker in a very good steel cage match. Definitely try and check that match out over on the TBS app. That is such a very good match. It's on par with their match last year around the same time, as both women work very well together. It's better than the match they had at AEW Revolution. It's a very good match. Definitely check it out. I will talk more about AEW Revolution in a bit. And finally, wrestling news. Remember last episode I told you about this new wrestling promotion called Control Your Narrative? and how they teased a television deal? Now we have details of this television deal, if you can call it a television deal. Seriously, because this is something that's not going to be on regular television. This is not going to be something that's going to be on cable. This is going to be on streaming. Now, before I get to where this promotion landed, this is not going to be on Netflix, nor Tubi, nor Paramount Plus, nor IWTV. Control Your Narrative announced that they have an exclusive TV deal with Pro Wrestling TV. That's right, Pro Wrestling TV. I never heard of Pro Wrestling TV. Seriously. This announcement is such a downer. You're teasing a TV deal. I'm not expecting a big deal. Maybe something along the lines of Vice, beIN Sports, that kind of level of TV deal. But Pro Wrestling TV? I would never have heard of this company. This company doesn't even have a Facebook page. They have a Twitter page, but not a Facebook page. So, this is going to be on this streaming service where it's ad-supported, of course, because just what we need, a wrestling channel that's ad-supported. I have no idea what this channel is going to bring. I don't even know what programming this channel has, except Control Your Narrative Wrestling, of course. This Pro Wrestling TV, from the looks of it, feels like your typical local independent channel. You know, back in the day, you had Channel 38 in Boston. You had Channel 9 in New York. All these nice independently owned channels where they just add syndication stuff. This is what it feels like with Pro Wrestling TV. Because literally, this is where local programming and independent programming go. It's not a big game changer. This is not going to give this promotion any traction. Because if this promotion had any traction, they'd be on a network that someone notices, not a network where it's starting up. I don't see this promotion surviving. I just don't. I hope it does survive, quite frankly, because I would love to see more wrestling promotions out there. But this is not a good start to Control Your Narrative. The fact that the promotion looks like it's something you'd see in an independent wrestling show, and the fact that its shows will be carried on Pro Wrestling TV, which is the equivalent of an independent TV station. As this announcement that their TV deal was so overhyped, because at the end of the day, this announcement was just nothing but them overhyping everything for it to be a downer, which is a downer because it's not on a major network or a second-tier network. It's on a streaming site that nobody has heard of. As this announcement was pretty much a waste of my time. As seriously, don't say, oh, we're going to have a TV deal, then come out and find out it's Pro Wrestling TV. I'm sorry. I just don't like that. That's setting expectations, then not delivering on them. That is not a good first stop for this promotion. Seriously. But who knows? Maybe this will work. But I'm doubting it. We'll see how Pro Wrestling TV does. Maybe it'll be a success. And I might be wrong. With that, that's the news.
Welcome to Dark Discussions, your place for the discussion of horror film, fiction, and all that's fantastic. a weekly podcast where the discussion is about the most recent horror and genre films. Intelligent talk on a genre that deserves intelligence. A conversation between co-hosts discussing not only the film, but also the connotation that the directors and screenwriters are trying to articulate. When you want more than a review, listen to Dark Discussions.
And speaking of perception, there's just one more scene I want to talk about, which is after Caleb discovers that Kyoto's a robot. Kyoto kind of peels off her skin, showing him what's underneath.
Now, wait a minute. I know where you're going with this, but tell me you weren't already thinking this 15 minutes earlier in the film. Exactly what he's thinking at that moment.
Which is he's a robot, too.
Oh, I considered the possibility.
Right, and that's what I like, is the fact that the writers are smart enough to know that this is what the audience would be thinking.
We've all seen Blade Runner.
Right, exactly.
www.darkdiscussions.com, wherever podcasts are found.
Welcome back. AEW Revolution happened between episodes. And I have to say, this was another great pay-per-view from All Elite Wrestling. All Elite Wrestling continues to put on really great pay-per-views. And that's what you want when you're watching wrestling. You want to have a fun 3 to 4 hours watching a great show. Again, this was so fun to watch. I had a blast watching Revolution, as this was much better than last year's AEW Revolution event, by far. Let me quickly run the results of the pay-per-view. The pre-show had 3 matches on the card. First, you had Layla Hirsch defeat Chris Statlander by pinfall. Then you had Hook defeat QT Marshall by submission in a very quick match. Then you had the House of Black, consisting of Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews, defeating Pac, Penta Oscuro, and Eric Redbeard by pinfall. Then the main card started with Eddie Kingston defeating Chris Jericho. Jurassic Express retained the AEW World Tag Team titles by defeating Red Dragon and the Young Bucks. Wardlow defeated Christian Cage, Keith Lee, Orange Cassidy, Powerhouse Hobbs, and Ricky Starks in the Face of the Revolution ladder match. Jade Cargill defeated Ty Conte to retain the TBS Championship. CM Punk defeated MJF in a door collar match. Dr. Britt Baker retained the AEW World Women's Championship by defeating Thunder Rosa. John Maxley defeated Bryan Danielson. Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, and Sting defeated the Andrade Hardy Family Office that consists of Andrade El Idolo, Matt Hardy, and Isaiah Cassidy. And in the main event, Hangman Adam Page retained the AEW World Championship by defeating Adam Cole. This was a very good show from start to finish. Now, matches that you should definitely check out. And the first one, you can definitely go right to YouTube for the buy-in. As literally, this pay-per-view doesn't really start off until the trios match between the House of Black versus Pac, Penta Obscuro, and Eric Redbeard. That match was very good for a pre-show match. It was a match that should have been on the main card, quite frankly. But literally, with all these other matches, it's kind of hard to fit the match onto the main card. But still, this was a main card level match on the pre-show. This is what separates AEW from other companies. They'll give you pay-per-view quality matches on their TV, and now on their pre-show to pay-per-views. That is a match worth checking out, as there was a lot of good action in that match. That match literally went almost 20 minutes, pretty much a third of the buy-in. And another thing I liked about this buy-in was the fact that we just had matches on the buy-in. No pre-show videos, no nothing. Just a normal Rampage episode, which is good. I like to see more of that before All Elite Wrestling pay-per-views, quite frankly. having 2 or 3 matches before the main card gets you hyped up for the show. It did very well getting me hyped for the card. And it just was like either a good match or great match throughout the night. The card started off with Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho. Very stiff match. I liked how both of them worked in the ring. I love how the way the match ended. It really also had some really good, more like Japan-style wrestling, which is nice that you need different styles of matches, because literally that's what makes matches stand out from each other and ultimately makes it enjoyable. Then after that really great opener, you go from there to the World Tag Team match. And that match is literally insane, of course. Anytime the Young Bucks and Red Dragon are in the ring together, they're usually good for a very good match. This was the case here at Jurassic Express. This was awesome. It just amazes me that AEW has a great tag division. It is so deep. And you can put any 3 teams in there and it'll probably be a good match. This was full of high spots. It was entertaining. Never was I bored in this match, as this was fast-paced throughout. Very different from the opening match, for sure. Then you follow up the World Tag Team match with a ladder match. Even more insanity happened. You go from one insane match to another insane match. And literally, in that match, the final thing in that match was Wardlow powerbombing Ricky Starks on a ladder. That looked sick. I literally thought Ricky Starks was literally dead. It looked like he took an awkward landing from that powerbomb from the top of the ladder onto another ladder, but thankfully he's fine. The only injury that came out of that match was Orange Cassidy. As on Wednesday, you could see him on Dynamite in a sling. He'll be out of action for a bit. But it's just amazing it's just one injury in that match, literally, considering all the insanity that happened in that match as well. So literally, this pay-per-view had 3 really insane matches to start off. There's a lot of positives on this pay-per-view, as literally, you could have had easily 3 or 4 matches of the night here. But the next really good match on this card was CM Punk and MJF. This is brutal. This is a very bloody dog collar match. I like how the storytelling of the match went. I love the fact that CM Punk came out to his Ring of Honor entrance music. Not the one he came out to in AEW, but his old Ring of Honor music from AFI. That brought back a lot of memories. Remember seeing the DVDs of old school ROH, him in the Second City Saints. Loved that entrance. And I think that fit perfectly with the story that was being told too. The ending came when MJF called Wardlow to the ring. He comes down to the ring. MJF wanted his dynamite ring. Wardlow couldn't find it. Gave enough time for CM Punk to recover and hit the GTS. And then Wardlow suddenly found the dynamite diamond ring. Left it in the ring for CM Punk. CM Punk uses the ring and pins MJF. I like great storytelling on both the CM Punk MJF side of it and the MJF Wardlow side of it, as it looks like MJF's going into a feud with Wardlow now. Another really great moment, probably my favorite and probably match of the night, was Jon Moxley defeating Bryan Danielson by pinfall. This was a very good match. This was intense. Another bloody match. This was intense. Headbutts. Technical wrestling. You name it, this was an intense match. Submission-based wrestling. It was a great match. And it ended when Moxley turned a Danielson submission into a pinfall, defeating Danielson. Then, after the match, Danielson got angry, and Moxley and Danielson continued to fight until none other than William Regal showed up. This was the huge surprise of the night. This really was also a great moment on this pay-per-view, as there was no buzz of William Regal showing up on this pay-per-view, but he's in All Elite Wrestling, and that is a great person to pick up. Seriously, if you have a wrestling company, this guy who's been in the inner workings of WWE developmental is going to be a valuable asset, especially if Tony Khan is going to turn Ring of Honor into a developmental brand. This is a great pickup for All Elite Wrestling, and I really can't wait to see what happens. And those were my positives of this pay-per-view. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot about one more thing. Sting diving off of a balcony in 2022. What the bleep? Literally. In the 6-man tag where Team Sammy Guevara with Sting and Darby Allin versus the Andrade Hardy family office, Sting dove off of a balcony, sending Andrade through tables. That was insane. I thought I saw it all in wrestling, seriously. I never would have had Sting diving off of a balcony. I don't even think Sting has ever dove off of a balcony in his entire career, to my knowledge. That's just insane for a guy that's 60 plus to do that spot. Literally. And finally, he had a very good main event in which Hangman Adam Page defeated Adam Cole. Has had some really good matches during his title run. I know he's been not booked strongly, but he's doing his part in having these very good title matches. And that's what you want. You want your title matches to have stakes and action. And I'm enjoying Hangman Adam Page's title reign so far. I hope they continue. I don't know what they do next with his title reign, because the only way I could think is maybe after coming off Revolution, CM Punk is probably the only name I could think of right now. I don't know if you want to do Jericho again. You could always do that again, but I really don't know if you want to do that right now, because it looks like Jericho's still tied up with Kingston and now Santana and Ortiz, as on Dynamite, Jericho turned on Santana and Ortiz to form a new faction called the Chris Jericho Appreciation Society. I am not kidding. That is the name for a stable. But back to AEW Revolution. This was a great show. I highly recommend you pick up the pay-per-view. It has great action, and the 4 hours flies by.
Hey guys, this is Steve and Christina. I'm the founder, owner, creator, and host of Super Retro Throwback Reviews. Are you looking for the best movie reviews, music reviews, video game reviews, and Comic-Con coverage all around? Well then look no further. Definitely check out Super Retro Throwback Reviews on YouTube and our new audio podcast, the new and improved Super Retro Throwback Reviews audio files version 2.0 on the following media distributors: Podbean, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.
Class is over, John. Time for something new and improved.
Every day there's a family struggling with hospital bills to care for their sick child who is fighting an illness. There's a woman who is fighting breast cancer and is having trouble making ends meet while paying for their treatment. And there are burn victims that are going through treatments to heal their deep wounds. There is a charity in the horror community that helps these people. Scares That Care is an organization that helps families deal with the bills for their child. They help women get the treatment they need to fight breast cancer, and they help people who are dealing with severe burns get the help they need to heal. Scares That Care is a 100% volunteer organization and 501c3 nonprofit charity that is dedicated to helping these people in fighting real monsters. To find out more information or to donate to Scares That Care, you can go to www.scaresthatcare.org. Every donation helps Scares That Care fight real monsters. Welcome back to Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show. I'm here with director and writer Andrew Durand, as he's here to talk about his latest film, The Local Boogeyman, which is currently funding on Indiegogo. How you doing today, Andrew?
I'm doing good, Anthony. How you doing, man?
Good. Something I always ask everyone when they come on my podcast: what made you want to get into filmmaking?
Well, I always wanted to get into filmmaking since I was a little kid, but especially because I love the horror genre. But I think it went back to high school, and we were doing a project for history class, and it was you could pick any topic, and if you could open up your own museum, what would it be about? And I did a whole presentation, with pictures, and had like little lights and stuff on a horror movie museum. And I ended up getting like a partner to do it with in high school. I don't remember the kid's name, but we were good friends then in high school. It was such a long time ago. And he was really cool, and he was like the only other kid in my class that was into horror films. So we would talk about it all the time, especially in history class while doing the project. And I think that's the first time I mentioned to somebody that, hey, sometime in my life, I want to direct my own horror film. And I think it went back from there.
The Local Boogeyman will be your third film. Your first two short films, Slaughter Road and Mischief Night Massacre, which you can find both on Facebook and YouTube. The films went on those platforms instead of going the film festival route. As a filmmaker, why did you decide to go that route?
It was really because I had no idea what I was doing while I was making those two movies. So I got with a bunch of local people that do a bunch of low-budget films, and we kind of all met up through Zoom, and we talked about my first project, Slaughter Road, and and I ended up meeting up with them, and we just made the movie, and I learned a lot. There was one guy on there. He's done so many low-budget films. So he was kind of like, I kind of leached onto him and got as much information as I could. And he was very knowledgeable. And then when it came to my second film, it was the same thing. I took a lot of the same people back, and we kind of just did it again. And same thing, all the information that I could learn from him, I sat and I paid attention. And then I knew it was time to, when I make my third film, I was like, this is going to be the one that goes to festivals. Because I didn't really want to go on my first two movies where I didn't know what I was doing much, and there wasn't much budget into it, and release them to festivals where everybody's gonna, there's gonna be millions of eyes on them, and people are gonna judge your film. I wanted to save that for when I knew exactly what I was doing.
You're about ready to make your latest film, The Local Boogeyman, which is your third film. Tell everyone about the project.
So to tell everybody about the Local Boogeyman, it's about a deputy who's played by Ari Lehman, who survives a grisly massacre of a local family, and 27 years later, he becomes sheriff of the town. But what happened on that haunted night, and what happened to the people that died in the hands of the killer, caught up to him, and now he has to relive all the horrors that he went through 27 years ago.
I've noticed that all your shorts are slashers. What make you want to decide to focus all your films on slasher films?
I think it's because when I got introduced to horror films, well, let me rephrase that. When I started exploring horror films on my own, they were all slasher films: Halloween, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I just think it's really something that just kind of leached onto me, and it's my favorite genre of horror, slashers. So it's just something I always wanted to make.
Have you explored, in the future, of any other subgenres of horror?
Oh, yeah, it's always running through my mind of what other things. I have so many ideas in here, but I try to, contain them so I can work on what's currently in front of me. But yes, definitely. I think, actually, to answer your question, Anthony, my next film after Local Boogeyman is not going to be a slasher.
What kind of horror film can people expect with the Local Boogeyman?
You can expect something fun to watch, something brutal, lots of blood, lots of gore, something that makes you cringe and it's like, just a really fun horror film is what you can expect.
You listed on your Indiegogo page that your favorite era of horror films are the 80s. And the style you're going for is an 80s type slasher film, which also looks like it with the poster art. What makes you like the 80s more compared to other decades that make this an inspiration for your film?
Well, see, what's funny about that is when I got introduced into horror films back in 1996, when I first seen my first ever horror movie I've seen was The Exorcist. So my introduction into horror films when I was little was in the 70s, and I loved the 70s. But when I got to explore horror films on my own and sit down and go through them, it was all in the 80s. Halloween 2, Return of the Living Dead, all movies like that. So going into my first few films, I wanted to keep everything on like a timeline of how I got into horror films, except making a film that took place in the 70s, of course, but which I'll get to that at some point in my career. But I wanted to stay, slasher in the 80s, because the 80s is it's not only that it's my favorite era of horror film, but it's the era that I explored the most as a kid.
Now, will The Local Boogeyman be a feature film or another short film like your two previous films?
It's going to be another short film, a little bit longer, obviously. Well, this one's aiming at like a half-hour film. But in the works, which I know I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to look too far ahead. But when it comes time, when I do my feature, possibly next year or whatever, But this one right now it's probably looking around like a half hour, maybe 40 minutes.
How is this film going to differ from your first two short films?
By a lot, this film's going to be different. In my first two films, I didn't have a lighting crew. I didn't have an FX crew. I didn't have a makeup crew. I didn't have a wardrobe crew. I didn't have anything because it was super low budget. And in this film, I'm happy to say that I have all of that. So I have all the tools to make a really good, successful film.
What made you want to go more ambitious on this film in terms of everything?
For this project, I sat down, and I think it went back to like the process when I was coming up with the idea for The Local Boogeyman. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what, this one, I'm real happy with my first two films, knowing they were low budget and all that you take into hold. But I was looking at this movie, and I said to myself, with this project, I'm going to go all out. I'm going to leave it all on the table. And that way, when it hits film festivals, I want to present something that people are going to be like, get wowed by. And I can only do that if I up the ante on everything. So everything had to be better for me for this project.
What's the script writing process like?
A script writing process is always fun to me. That's probably one of my favorite parts of writing films. And I've heard so many stories. People tell me that's stressful. It's stressful. I like this the script writing process. I always start. So I don't know if. Probably everybody don't start the same way as me, but I start with an idea, and then I just start to branch off of it. And once I get, my first draft down, I'll read through it a couple times, and then I'll go back in and every day I'll go back in and write. And I probably, when I'm writing a script, Anthony, I'll wake up early every morning. So probably between 7:30 to 8 o'clock, and I will write for 3 hours. So if I start at 8, I'll finish by lunchtime. And then that'll be it for the day. And then throughout the day, I'll just, if anything pops into mind about the script while it's fresh, I'll jot it down on a piece of paper or something, or on my notes on my phone. And then that way, for the next day, maybe I'll have an extra half hour to write on my script. But for this script for The Local Boogeyman took me about maybe 3 months to write. To 3 months to have a complete script, from all my, drafts and everything. But yeah, so it's 3 months. I enjoy the script writing process. It's real fun to me, getting up and being creative and writing something. And, while you're writing it, I'm getting like real excited, like, oh, this is going to be cool. I can't wait to, put this on film and like show this to somebody. So
what films inspired the screenplay for the film?
Oh, what films inspired the screenplay. I would say, I don't know, I'd say the Local Boogeyman is kind of unique to its own, but I would say probably a little bit of Halloween, a little bit of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in this film. It has a very serious tone. And those are two of my favorite films. So I think a little bit of those two films rubbed off in my upcoming movie.
Now, casting, you have a good cast lined up. You have the first Jason from the original Friday the 13th film, Ari Letman. What impressed you about Ari as an actor that you cast him in the film?
So when I was talking to Ari, I said, hey, I'm filming this movie in the summer. I have a role for you in mind. And he's like, oh, cool. He's a wicked friendly guy if you never get to meet him. He's very high energy. I could describe him as. I love Ari. He goes, yeah. He's like, cool. What's the role? So I emailed him over the script, and I told him the role of the film. I emailed him the script. It took him a few days because he read it and stuff, so it took him a few days to get back to me. And then he when he finally gets back to me, he's like, I love that role of that sheriff. I love the role of that sheriff. I can really knock that out the park. And Ari doesn't get much lead roles in films, which I don't know why. And what made me extra excited to give this role to Ari was his passion for the role, his excitement for the role. He was going over little notes with me about, hey, what if I do this with the character and do this with the character? And I always give the actors and actresses so a little bit of freedom to play with their characters, because that's how you're going to get their best work. And he's just so far, talking with Ari and what he's presented to me for the character is it's blown me away, and I really can't wait to start working with him.
Besides Ari, the film stars Trista Robinson from Purgatory Road and Echoes of Fear, and Aline Dietz from The Exorcist. What made you want to cast these two actresses in your film?
I think it was really easy to pick these two actresses. They're both amazing, talented actresses. And to start with Trista, it was the same thing as Ari. I reached out to her, and she read the script, and she got back to me, and she really liked the script, and she liked the character that she's going to be playing. And every time I've watched a film that has Trista in it, she always kills her role. She is such an amazing, talented actress, and I love watching her on screen. And so when I sent her the script and she liked the character, which I will say, without giving away too much, this character definitely is good for her strengths. She's an amazing actress, and so I'll give you a little her character in Purgatory Road, which is almost kind of similar to the character in this film, and I loved her in Purgatory Road. So reading the script, and it was the characters almost kind of resemble themselves in a way, not fully, but I'm and I reached out to Trista, and I'm this is a perfect character for her to play. And she comes back, and she's like, oh, I love the character, and I'm very excited to play it. And I just knew right there that she was the one to get for that role. And as for Eileen, same thing. It was going back. That was, going back to when I was a kid, and the first film I seen was The Exorcist. So to get to work with Eileen is phenomenal. It's almost like a dream come true. And again, she plays strengths to the role that I casted her for.
Besides those two actresses, who else is slated to be in the cast?
I haven't really got that far, but I do have I have Moose, who's been in my last two films. I know he's coming back for this one too. And that's it so far. That's it as of right now. Not to say I won't add anybody else, but I'm not too sure yet. But that's it as of right now for names.
What made you decide to go with Indiegogo compared to other crowdfunding sites?
I know nothing about crowdfunding sites. So the number one, two, actually, when I was looking up what crowdfundings to use, Indiegogo popped up a lot. I've seen a lot of other filmmakers using Indiegogo. Because at first I was going to use Kickstarter, and because that's the only one I knew about. Well, I knew about Indiegogo, but Kickstarter, someone mentioned that to me. But I've seen everybody else that's
You've set a goal for $16,000. Can you break down what the money is going towards?
Yeah, absolutely. $16,000 is to pay my actors and actresses. I have to pay the lighting crew, cameraman, FX crew, everybody that's in this movie gets paid, down to the crafts or everything. Making films costs a lot of money. I know even someone said that to me, $16,000. I was like, yeah, $16,000, but that doesn't only secure the best quality that you're going to get from a film, because I went out and got the best of everything for this movie, like the best camera crew in Boston and all that. So I mean, the money adds up, but it adds up in a good way, where you're going to get a real good film.
What perks can people expect when you contribute to the Local Boogeyman Indiegogo campaign?
I have lots of cool perks on there. Actually, I just added some like a week ago. I just added you can get signed crosses by Eileen. But there's posters on there. I have digital codes for the movie, T-shirts, posters, which I already think I mentioned. I have 8x10s of the actors and actresses in the film. You can buy props from the movie that are going to be used on screen. There's a lot of real cool things in there.
When are you planning on shooting this film?
In the summer. This summer. It was originally gonna be in June, but that's probably gonna get pushed. So I'm hoping by July or August. August the latest.
What are the release plans for this film?
The release plans for this film is straight to festivals. We're gonna film it this year. It'll go into post-production, and it'll get edited up. And then starting next year is I'll do 1 full year of film festivals for it. And then I haven't yet decided if I don't know if I'm going to do a physical release yet, because the movie's going to only be around 30 to 40 minutes. So I don't know how many people would buy a 30 to 40 minute Blu-ray. So but there's definitely going to be digital codes. Like I said. But yeah, straight to film festivals for this. This is going to sit in the film festival circuit for a while.
Where can they find information and keep up to date on the Local Boogeyman?
On my Instagram and on my Facebook. More on my Facebook. If you can just find me on Facebook, Andrew Durand. Andrew Munster. That's what my name is on Facebook. I post, all updates and everything there. As soon as I know it, I put it up there. So.
Is that the same for all your films and social media as well?
Oh, if you want to watch my films, my first 2 films are on YouTube. Andrew's Horror Show on YouTube. And I have my first 2 films up there if you want to go back and watch them. And yeah, that's it.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on to my podcast. And have a good day.
Thanks for having me, Anthony.
You're welcome.
You too, man. Later.
Same here.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
This is Carrie.
This is Billy.
This is Mr. Bo.
And we are from A Podcast from Beneath. You can catch us every Wednesday wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
You'll find Anthony T's horror and wrestling show on these social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and the Slasher app at Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling. And on Twitter at Anthony T's Horror. You'll find new episodes on darkdiscussions.com, major podcast providers, and YouTube. What's Anthony T watching this episode? Well, I teased it at the beginning of this podcast that I will be reviewing Scream 5. Why I don't like calling this film Scream is because this film is a continuation from the fourth film. It is not a requel. It is not like Halloween. It is not like the recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre debacle. It continues on from Scream 4. I don't get why Paramount Pictures titled it this film Scream 2022, because this is not like, oh, it picks up 25 years after, because it doesn't. It picks up right after Scream 4. And you can tell easily because it has the surviving characters of Scream 4 in this film. So I don't get why we need to call this film Scream. It's just ridiculous. This is the latest film from the duo known as Radio Silence. If you don't know who Radio Silence is, they are consisted of 3 people. Directors Matt Bertinelli Olpin, Tyler Gillette, and executive producer Chad Villa. They were behind the best film of 2019, Ready or Not. If that wasn't big enough, the executive producer of Ready or Not, James Vanderbilt, and screenwriter Guy Busick were handling the screenplay for Scream 5. So, literally, I was excited because literally everybody from Ready or Not is doing Scream 5 on the production side. And that's good because this is the follow-up film for Radio Silence, as they've done some really good work, I think. Whether it's their VHS segment in the first VHS film or Ready or Not, this film already had me right there. And in fact, it's the sequel to Scream 4, which is the first Scream film to come out since 2011, meaning pretty much almost 11 years since the last Scream film. So I was very excited for this film. Hence why I'm referring to this film as Scream 5. It takes place 11 years after Scream 4. I don't understand why this film got retitled Scream, literally, because you're literally continuing the story from Scream 4. I don't care if it's 11 years later. It's Scream 5. It's clear as day. It's Scream 5. I don't want to hear this nonsense about, oh, it's just Scream. Just refer to this film as Scream. No, I'm not going to refer to this film as Scream. Hence, I will be referring to this film as Scream 5, not Scream. Anyway, this was a great film. I have to admit, I enjoyed this film a lot. And one of the reasons why it was Olpin's and Gillette's direction here. They do a great job with the way they direct everything, as this is probably the bloodiest entry in the Scream franchise, by far. I like how they really directed the death scenes here, as there were, I think, some of the most brutal scenes in the franchise, including 2 deaths, which I think are the bloodiest death scenes in this franchise. And it kind of happened back to back, practically. If you haven't seen the film, you don't know what I'm talking about. I'm not telling you anymore. But these scenes kind of happen back to back. They are literally 2 of the goriest death scenes. I liked how those scenes impacted this film, because then it was all bets off. But I'm not going to tell you anything more. You have to see Scream 5. The directors also do a great job with the way they directed their young cast here. Unlike Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the young cast in this film are actually good. They aren't annoying like the people in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I could get into each of the characters easily. I was not turned off like how Texas Chainsaw Massacre literally turned me off of every character in that film. It's a combination of very good directing and very good writing. And I like it when that happens, as both the writing and the directing team really made sure that the young cast comes off as relatable and likable and not annoying. it really helped make this film, and it really helps establish this franchise going forward. As there are very good performances here. Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, Jack Quaid, all very good in this film. Also, loved the legacy characters that came back. Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Nev Campbell, they're all very good in this as well. I like how the focus was on the newer characters here. It really made this a very entertaining film and made me want to see this franchise going forward, quite frankly. Because at some point, you're not going to see Arquette, Cox, and Campbell in these Scream films forever. At some point, those characters need to exit the series. And I like how the writers of Scream 5, James Vanderbilt and Guy Busick, set up a foundation going forward for this series. Because that is, I think, one of the best takeaways of this film. It sets a foundation that you can go back to these characters. They're actually entertaining and likable. And another thing, speaking of the screenplay, I like how they really come up with some shocking scenes in this film. Has some very shocking death scenes and shocking twists. It really made this film great. This is a very good film. This film most likely will be in the discussion of my top 10 films of 2022 because this is such a very good film. And I'm so surprised that at a fifth film that this is great. I have to say, this is probably the best Scream film since Scream 2. And really, if you're a fan of this series, definitely check this film out. It is great. And I like how the torch has been passed from Wes Craven to radio silence, because I think they can do wonders with the series, as they can help bring this series to a new generation of horror fans. Let's definitely check out Scream 5. It is such a very good horror film, and one of the best Scream films in the franchise. Next episode will be a normal episode, as I'm going to get a guest on. I know this is WrestleMania weekend coming up, but I'm going to do a separate WrestleMania weekend episode so I can see a lot of these shows before I give you what I like, what I thought was some of the best stuff of the weekend. The only way I can do it is to watch all these shows, and I can't watch every show in a weekend, literally. I have to take time. So, this is what's going to happen. Episode 75 will be a normal show of Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show. Episode 76 will be the WrestleMania weekend show, as I will try to watch at least 9 or 10 shows, as you get the GCW, the collective going on. You got WWE WrestleMania, Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor, Run Under Tony Khan. A lot of shows. I need to see all of them, because yours truly has to do at least one segment to WrestleMania, obviously. One segment will probably be my overall assessment of the weekend. One segment will probably be Ring of Honor, Game Changer Wrestling, and so on. It's going to take a while to do the WrestleMania weekend episode. There's so much stuff, so little time I have to watch everything. So, WrestleMania weekend thoughts will be episode 76. 75 will be a normal episode, as I record 76 along the way. So it could get done faster, or it could be a month before you get WrestleMania weekend thoughts. But I will try to be as fast as I can on those. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and major podcast platforms. Don't forget to like Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling Show on social media at Anthony T's Horror and Wrestling on Facebook, Instagram, and the Slasher app. And Anthony T's Horror on Twitter. With that, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. Have a good day. Support indie wrestling and support indie horror.